Good evening. You're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Soraya Mia. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim today launched the Madani Economy Plan, which aims to restructure the economy to make Malaysia a leader in Southeast Asia. Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, announced 7 benchmarks under the plan for Malaysia to achieve within the next 10 years.
Ekonomi madani memperkasa rakyat akan menjadi induk kepada beberapa lagi dasar khususnya akan diumumkan kelak. Di antaranya Kementerian Ekonomi dengan Plan Hala 7 Peralihan Tenaga Nasional. MITI dengan Plan Induk Perindustrian Baru 2030. Dan kajian separuh penggal rencana dengan Malaysia ke-12.
The 7 benchmarks include transforming Malaysia into the top 30 largest economies around the world and placing the country in the top 12 of the Global Competitiveness Index. Other benchmarks were placing the country as the top 25 nations in the world in the Corruption Perception Index, increasing women's participation in the country's workforce to 60%, and boosting the nation's fiscal strength with a fiscal deficit of 3% or lower. To achieve this, the Prime Minister outlined several initiatives and policies for implementation. This involves expanding startups and MSMEs to international markets and improving the country's level of self-sufficiency. The new policies will also aim to have 45% of the country's GDP consist of wages, as well as for scholarships and boarding school placements to prioritise low-income groups, among others.
Malaysians earning less than 100,000 ringgit yearly will be given a 100 ringgit in e-wallet credit under the Madani Economy Initiative. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim says 1 billion ringgit had been allocated for this purpose. He added that the number of eligible recipients is estimated to be over 10 million from the B40 and M40 groups. He said more details on the e-wallet credit initiative will be revealed soon. Anwar also said that a welfare assistance of 300 ringgit will be given to civil servants below grade 56 and 200 ringgit to civil service retirees, including those who have yet to receive pensions. The Attorney General's Chambers, AGC, did not press charges over 1MDB despite Bank Negara Malaysia's recommendations, says former Governor Tan Sri Zeti Akhtar Aziz. She was testifying as the 46th prosecution witness in Datuk Sri Najib Razak's trial over 2.28 billion ringgit misappropriation of 1MDB funds. Zeti said on April 21, 2015, she had met with the then Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC Chief Commissioner Tan Sri Abu Qasim Muhammad to disclose the finding. On June 9, 2015, the then Attorney General Tan Sri Abdul Ghani Patail called for the first task force meeting involving Abu Qasim and herself to discuss the matter. However, slightly more than a month after, the task force was terminated as Abdul Ghani was removed as AG. After Tan Sri Apandi Ali took over, Zeti said there were no more task force meetings that were called by the then AG. She said BNM had on August 13, 2015 submitted an investigation paper to AGC to initiate criminal prosecution and charge 1MDB and its senior officers for furnishing false information to the central bank in the company's application for permission to make payments outside Malaysia. However, Zeti said for reasons unknown, the then AG had on September 11, 2015 classified the investigation as no further action. The National Social Council will be presenting a paper to the Cabinet to curb the alarming rate of sexual activities among youth. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said this would enable more drastic measures to be taken to solve the problem immediately.
Permasalahan ini amat membimbangkan. Malang sekali kejadian ini terlalu tinggi di antara negeri-negeri iaitu negeri Serambi Mekah. Dan ini tentunya bukan masalah politik tetapi masalah sosial yang sebenar. Dan kita mesti mencari jalan supaya ianya dinoktahkan.
Zahid, who was chairing the second National Social Council meeting for the year 2023, said the problem involved youth as young as 13. The proposal, he said, will be brought forward by Women, Family and Community Development Minister Datuk Sri Nancy Shukri. He said the government is looking at increasing study hours for reproductive health lessons. It may also introduce the Health, Reproductive and Social Program, Pekerti, as a syllabus at higher institutions, including religious schools. The Health Ministry's National Health and Morbidity Survey last year revealed that out of over 150,000 sexually active youth aged between 13 and 17, 33% of them had sex before the age of 14, and 11% have multiple partners. As candidate nominations for the upcoming state elections draw near, we take a look at how the 6 states have fared in terms of gender equality. Political analyst Professor Wong Chin Huat breaks down the current percentage of female elected assembly persons for each state.
The international benchmark for gender inclusion is a minimum 30% women representative in decision-making bodies. Unfortunately, both our federal parliament and all the 13 state legislature have failed in this regard. Of the 6 states that are going into state elections on 12th of August, Selangor achieved the best, but that was only 21.43% for the last legislature. So that's nearly 9% per point fall short of the 30% target. And Penang, 15%, and Kedah, 13.89%. Kelantan Negeri Sembilan, they're below 10%, and Terengganu, 0.
However, there are viable solutions to encourage parties to field more female candidates in the state polls.
Now, to treat this, to solve this, we have 2 solutions. One is to impose on every party that they must nominate 30% of candidates on all constituency, even though that some of the constituency may not be winnable at all, but you have to impose this. But there is a big challenge. How do you punish parties if they are not compliant? So the second way is actually very easy. We just have to tweak our electoral system a bit. We have to increase the number of lawmakers by introducing a second category called party list lawmakers. But party list has a very important usefulness, more than for gender quota. Not only for smaller parties like MUDA and PSM to win seats, but also it takes away the necessity for government partners like PH and BN to transfer votes to each other. They can actually win on their votes, compete against each other in a limited way to win seats and then form government. So it is time for us to explore other options.
Moving forward, Chin Huat also suggests a gender quota system to achieve the global benchmark of 30% women's representation in all state legislative assemblies.
There's a simpler way to pursue. Penang in November 2021 actually tabled a white paper to its state assembly intending to introduce a system called top-up women-only additional seats, TWAS. The idea is very simple. Alongside our normal state elections, parties that contest in Penang are allowed to nominate an extra numbers of women candidates on a separate list. In the event that we do not have enough 30% of women in Penang, that's 12 women in the 46th assembly, then we have to add in top up just to make it reaching 30%.
We'll be right back with international news after the break. Welcome back. 45 whales that beached on the southwestern Australian coast were euthanized after a second day of frantic but unsuccessful efforts to rescue them. Officials say the decision to euthanize the long-fin pilot whales was made to avoid prolonging their suffering.
A pod of 100 whales had stranded themselves on Tuesday at a beach near the city of Albany. More than 50 died overnight, while authorities and hundreds of volunteers worked throughout Wednesday to save the ones that survived. Volunteers had managed to get the remaining whales pushed back into the shallows, but the pod had re-stranded itself further down the beach. Pilot whales are highly social animals, and wildlife experts speculate that the beaching could indicate illness or stress within the pod. Authorities said samples would be taken from the whale carcasses for analysis before they are buried in an inland location.
In other news, North Korea's Kim Jong-un showed off its latest banned weapons to Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu. Pyongyang invited the Russian delegation along with Chinese officials as the countries pledged to boost ties. The United Nations banned weapons on display included the Hwasong Intercontinental Ballistic Missile ICBM, which was successfully tested in April. Shoigu's visit comes amid accusations that Pyongyang is supplying Russia with arms for use in its war in Ukraine, a claim that both Pyongyang and Moscow deny. North Korea's KCNA news agency said Kim and Shoigu discussed matters of mutual concern in the fields of national defense and international security. The arrival of the Russian and Chinese delegations marks its first major opening up to the world since the coronavirus pandemic. Southern Taiwan shut businesses and schools while hundreds of flights were cancelled amid warnings of landslides and floods as a result of Typhoon Doksuri. However, Taiwan's armed forces braved through the rain and pressed ahead with military exercises at a beach near the capital, Taipei.
The typhoon, categorized as second strongest level by Taiwan's Weather Bureau, headed towards the southern Taiwan Strait this morning with maximum winds of 191 kilometers per hour. Previously a super typhoon, Doksuri lost some of its strength after lashing the northern Philippines on Wednesday, killing at least 5 people. Taiwan issued wind and rain warnings for the south, including major port city of Kaohsiung. All domestic flights and ferry lines were suspended, while more than 100 international flights were cancelled or delayed. Doksuri is expected to make landfall in mainland China on Friday. Meanwhile, Taiwanese armed forces conducted a large-scale anti-landing drill on Thursday amid high military tensions with neighbouring China. But the storm disrupted its annual Hankwang exercises and air raid drills that started on Monday, as authorities cited safety concerns.
Now that report ends the show. You are watching Awani Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. See you again.